Most leaders feel buried in work, but not this one. Today's guest leads global teams across multiple time zones. He manages 2 different parts of a major technology business and is under constant pressure, yet he never seems to feel buried in workload. And this episode explains exactly why. Welcome to The Debrief. I'm your host, Deeclayton, a multi-award-winning executive coach and trainer. And The Debrief Show is the show for leaders who want to bring out the best in themselves, their teams, and their communications. Today's guest is Andrew Fraser. He's a leader in a global technology company, and despite all the constant pressure of different time zones and different countries and different responsibilities, he still manages his time really well and never feels behind. I wanted to find out how he did that, so I invited him onto the Debrief Show to share some of his secrets with us. Listen out for a real leader under constant pressure who has it all down to a T. Of course, there's always things that he wants to do better, but listen to some of these techniques and you too can feel calm, relaxed and in control of your workload. Let's listen in. Hi Andy, and welcome. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your role. I know it's kind of really busy, so tell us a little bit about your role, please.
Well, hi Dee, thanks for having me. I work for a global company, a global business in the technology sector. I have a global role, meaning I have teams in lots of different countries and regions around the world. And I carry 2 different hats really. I work from in a partner space, so ecosystems, building partnerships and strategic ecosystems that support some of our products. And I also run a partial customer success organisation, so front-facing people who look after some of our large accounts from a day-to-day service and customer success perspective.
And it's a really high pressure environment, I'd say, quite a fast moving environment. You've got a lot of people in your team. They're across different time zones and you've got multiple hats to wear. So when I thought about who can we get on to talk about time management, this isn't theory, this is real world. You do this every day and you are a really good example of somebody who has all those pressures, yet you're very good at time management and prioritization. So were you always good at time management and prioritization?
Let me start somewhere slightly different. There's 2 types of people in life I've come across in my professional career. And number one, there's those who live to work and there's those who work to live. And therefore, their behaviours may slightly differ. But when I think about myself as a leader and what my working week looks like, it may vary to others out there who are just as busy. I mean, I'm in a global role. There may be somebody in a localized role or a regional role. But what I would say is that there's some common themes for people who work in stressful, high-intensity environments where they'll carry the same themes through regardless of their role, what they manage, or whether it's localized or global or regional. Every leader at the beginning of a week, me included, is probably going to think about they've got scheduled meetings. They're going to do some coaching, problem solving, reporting, selling, both internally and externally. You don't need to necessarily be in sales to be able to know that you need to sell, because often you are selling to internal stakeholders and building business cases to try and support business requirements and get their buy-in. Dealing with conflict, managing stakeholders and their expectations, dealing with human resources and personnel issues and responding to fire drills, which is often the thing that derails most people when it comes to finding a balance and being able to prioritize across the weeks and months.
So, but I'm guessing, so you're saying the ad hoc things, so people start planning and then there's ad hoc stuff that derails them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think this is an important point. I mean, we can all think we're organized and we can try and be organized, but when you work in high pressure environments and I'm a senior leader, but there's also leadership above me. I don't know what they're going to wake up on a Monday morning thinking about. I don't know. We're going to have to react to some macro economic dynamics that have happened in the past couple of weeks that are affecting the business, and it's something I can impact. But I think what's important is that we're aware that those things are going to happen, and they happen frequently. It's not about them happening; it's about how you deal with them. Mm-hmm. And how we'll probably get onto a bit more of this further through the conversation, Dee, about when these things happen, what do you do to try and maintain that balance and also ensure that all the other stakeholders and deliverables that you're responsible for will be executed?
Yeah. So were you always like this then, or were you always organised, or did it sort of changed at a certain time?
No, but I think that's obvious, and the same. Everybody would say the same thing. I mean, if I think back to probably a 30-year career in IT and leadership, back in the sort of 90s when I was in my 20s, 30s, I was full of energy, young, green. I wasn't married. I didn't have any children, so. The whole work-life balance thing was less of a priority for me because I could, it didn't matter that I was, working on my laptop at 10 o'clock at night. It didn't matter that I was, flying all over the place, selling or delivering, high quality service. Didn't really matter. When I reflected on this, and when you initially asked me to talk about this, I actually did some reflection, and I think there's probably three things throughout my life and career that have helped influence the way I operate and work today and the way I coach others on this subject. Number one, and the obvious one that we've talked about, you meet somebody, you get married, you have children, you buy a house. My wife, who's still my wife, thankfully, she's been very good to me over the years, even though I have spent a lot of time not with her because I've been traveling. I remember back in the day, we would sit on a Sunday evening side by side at the breakfast bar with our laptops negotiating on who was going to pick the kids up that week in football practice, who was dropping them off, who was doing lunch club, who was going to sit and do homework. And believe me, it was often quite a difficult conversation because we would both assume that we were more important than the other from a work perspective. So that was number one. And so that taught us to prioritize. The second pivotal moment for me was the first time I had the privilege of managing a team. At that point, I'm then observing others. I'm learning from their behaviors, and I'm trying to spot things that I did badly that I've fixed in my own, with my own working patterns, and try and understand, whether there's anything I can do to support and coach them. But I will just, I'll caveat that by saying one of the most important things as a leader is to understand your people, because everybody's different. Their priorities are different, their home circumstances are different, their work environments are different, and the challenges that we put on them are often different. So, but that was a pivotal moment for me. And then lastly, I think that probably I've been working in a global role now for 12 years, and as much as it's been enjoyable, it's tough. Travel, late night calls, early morning calls. So that's when I really, really started to invest an awful lot of time in prioritizing my time, where I wanted to spend it, and creating more of a balance for me. So I didn't burn myself out, because if I burn myself out as a leader, I'm no use to anybody else.
Yeah, and I've done quite a lot of other debrief shows about burnout, about inner criticism, all of these things that contribute to burnout or not being your best. So there's loads of other interviews that people can go to learn a bit more about this. But so we're not saying that, they've got to copy exactly what you're doing, but what I'm showing here is somebody who lives in the real world, who has got a really good handle on time management and prioritization. So for you, was there a moment then, so that you got married, you took a team on, and the last point is that you wanted to make sure that you really got a handle on this?
Yeah, sure. Well, there was another thing that happened, which I know you're very well aware of because it's how we met. I hit a bit of a wall about halfway through my when I stepped into a global role and I was promoted, and I felt a little bit overwhelmed. And but I was more. I think you helped me figure out that being overwhelmed was more to do with the fact that I was suffering from a little bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't feel as I was good enough. I was in rooms with executives and senior leaders, and I was struggling to understand why I was there. And often I was stumbling over my words, and that was causing me more stress. So I ended up finding myself trying to work harder, but not smarter. And I think, the work we did together at the time really helped me sort of come out of myself, and it gave me more confidence to be able to go and engage with people like that. And also, I was there for a reason. They'd asked me to be there for a reason. I just needed to get beyond that in my own head. And once I'd figured that part out, all the pieces of the jigsaw started to fall into place, which is something I think we're going to talk about a little bit more in a second. But that was another pivotal moment for me that I think somebody needed to just release that pressure valve and tell me what they thought I was doing wrong, or explain to me why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and then give me some tools and mechanisms to be able to cope with that moving forward. Some of that's imposter syndrome, but it also segued and helped me quite nicely with the work-life balance.
And I'm just thinking, as you talk about that, the change there would have been that you're worth sorting your time out for. It is worth creating a timetable that works for you, and you can still add value to the business. So I can see how those two would come together really nicely. And thank you for mentioning the coaching work that we did together. So I noticed that you're very different, which is why I wanted to get you on from many of the people that I work with, the fact that you have such a high pressure job and you've got this good handle on things. So I noticed that myself, and I think you notice it. But do other people around you notice it? Do you get feedback from others saying, hold on, you're doing something differently, or you act differently, you're calmer, or how do other people perceive you?
It's a great question. And I think I'm not necessarily one for I'll take feedback, and I love feedback, but I'm going to answer it in a slightly different way, Dee, if that's okay. I think the greatest accolade that I've been given, or I receive from people, is that they want to come and work for me. And often I do have people approach me regularly. I have people who work for me who don't want to go and work anywhere else, even though they might have opportunities to do it. And when I actually speak to them about that, a lot of it is to do with the fact that it's the human approach. It's engagement, it's listening, it's helping them, find a better way of working, have a better life, have a better work-life balance, but still allow them to produce and deliver quality work. Just simple things like, regular all-hands calls, giving them the safe space, showing them that you're vulnerable. This isn't just you. I never sit there and assume that that it's their problem and it's only their problem. It's not. I've been there. I still feel like that today. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Every now and again, I have to kick myself up the backside and sit and just reflect and take a breather. Making them aware that I am also vulnerable and I'm transparent helps them open up and talk to me. And therefore, I just foster relationships, and as a result, I guess people walk to me and just want to come and work with me.
Yeah.
But I also don't want them to stay with me. I want them to do well, and I get more nourishment out of seeing people pass through and progress. And I always go back to Richard Branson, his quote about look after your people, the business will take care of itself.
And I've worked with quite a lot of your teams now. Thank you for inviting me to do that. And I noticed that when we're together, I can see that they trust you, and the work that we do together with your teams is quite deep, and so they're already ready for that. And the way you brief them is, I can see that. So let's get on to these time management and prioritization tips or techniques. So I think there's maybe two things. First of all, some overriding principles, which is maybe you're worth it. I think that's a shampoo, like you're worth it. But what are some of the guiding principles? And then we're coming to some of the habits that people may or may not pick and choose from. But I think the principles are probably could be quite generic. Share some of your founding principles around it.
In no particular order. So again, people who listen to this might prioritize these in a slightly different way. So I'm just gonna call that number one: quality, not quantity. So working long hours. I hear people regularly, I've done 80 hours this week, I've done 70 hours. It doesn't equal high performance. It often means that they are not managing themselves and prioritizing correctly. And more so, they're not communicating up the management chain to let people know that they're overloaded. So that's number one. Discipline and commitment. So the analogy I'll give you is we're going to the gym. We've just come out of 2025, new year, people make resolutions. People join gyms, they go for a few weeks, and then they use the gym as more of a coffee shop. You've got to be disciplined and committed to this. It's not something that you can just, you have to have a plan. And if you're not disciplined, it won't work. So it's constant discipline and commitment. Routine, which I'll I won't get into here, but we'll talk about it in the next part. But having a routine from a personal perspective is good for your health, but it's also good from a work perspective as well. And it also sets some boundaries. So routine for me is key. The filter thing is an interesting one. I think it's probably more important as a leader of teams to have a filter and prioritize. What I mean by a filter is I'll have leadership rain down on me, my boss, her boss's boss, and some of these people are C-level. We need this, you have to do that. We need this by Friday. I think you should focus on this. The question I need to ask myself is, how much of that am I going to let flow down to the team? So, do they need to know about it all?
Yeah.
Do we need to do it? Are the things I need to go challenge? There may be some things I have to articulate and make sure we message it in the right way. So that's the filter, communicating upwards. And again, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but you have to have a good relationship with your manager, your upline manager, because they often will not know how much work you're doing, because all the work that you're doing isn't necessarily coming from them. So you have to have this two-way communication with them, because part of their role and part of my role, as I see it, is I want to make sure you don't get derailed so that you're effective and you deliver quality and you've got a balance. But if you're not talking to me about it, how can I help you? And often I might be better at asking why you're saying no than you. This is a given, right? We're not, unless you're a medical professional, or you work for UNICEF or whatever. We're not solving world hunger. So if you don't do something, or it's a day late, or what have you, as long as you've told people, the wheels aren't going to come off. Generally speaking,
I think that's a difficult one for other people. They feel like it is that, don't they? They feel like it's the end of their world if they haven't done it, but that's probably, as we know, they're monkeys, isn't it?
It is. And going back to the whole communication piece and having a relationship with your manager and others, that's how you fix that. It's how you fix it. You give them a safe space to be able to come and talk to you, and then you help them solve the problem. And in some cases, take the workload away from them or delegate it elsewhere. And my last, I'm going to call it a mantra, because as simple as it sounds, everybody gets vacation every year. They get it allocated. It's different by country, of course, but generally speaking, everybody has vacation. Some countries and cultures do it better than others, but it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Take it off. Take the time off. Everybody needs to recharge. There is no reason not to use it ever. There's no excuse. You're getting paid to have time off, so take the time off. Nothing's going to fall apart if you don't answer an email in a 2-week time frame. It's not, because somebody will find somebody else to go and do it.
Yeah, I think that would be another hard one for some people listening to go, yeah, but you don't understand. I need to roll it over to next year because I'm the only one who blah, 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 fill in the gaps. Brilliant. Lovely. So tell us, I think the principles are the most important, because without those, you can't do the habits, however well you think the habits, however good you think Andy's habits are. If some of those principles aren't aligned with the habits, they'll only be short term. They'll only be a week or 2 weeks, and then they will fall down. So the principles is the most important thing, which is why I wanted to spend some time on that. But do give us some habits as well, because we always like to model some of the good things that you do, or think, well, if that doesn't work for me, how can I take that idea and make it work for me? So do share with us some of your habits.
Let's talk about routine just for a second, and I'm going to give you an example, my example. So I have 2 routines. I have a summer routine and I have a winter routine. And I'm an early riser. So my summer routine involves me getting up at about 5:15, 5:30. I'm up and I'm out with the dogs, walking the dogs. It's my exercise, it's their exercise for at least an hour. I come home, I shower, I breakfast, I hit my email. I have at least an hour doing email. That's nothing else. I block time out every single morning just to do email. It clears the decks. Understand what's in your calendar. Has anything changed? Do I need to reschedule anything? Has anything come in over the weekend or from the previous Friday? As we move into the winter, I get up at the same time, but I do the work first. And then when it goes light, I make space at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and go and do the same routine, take the dogs out, do some exercise. Again, different for everybody. People have families. I don't have young children anymore. So just try and figure that out, because health professionals will tell you routine is king. Going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time. It's the same with work. Good routine, you're setting an expectation, it keeps you organised. The other thing that I always recommend people do cyclically, I would say probably quarterly, half yearly is good, and maybe a half yearly or annual review with your manager is go cleanse your diary. My experience tells me that, and I see this on a day-to-day basis. If I can pick any of my team today and go into their calendars, and I will probably find 2 or 3 meetings that they don't need to attend. Mm-hmm. Or there'll be a meeting for an hour and there'll be no agenda. And my question to them is, do you think you're going to add some value to this call? You can do it yourself, and you can go through a process with your team. And because often they just get invited to things and they'll just click yes. So go and challenge them on it and try and help give them some time back. Mm-hmm. And because there's an awful lot of wasted time, but it's FOMO. A lot of people have fear of missing out.
Yeah.
They get invited to a meeting and think, I've got to join that meeting, because if I don't join it, I'm going to miss out on something. Well, in actual fact, what you're going to do is you're going to sit there for an hour, emailing, not taking any notice of anything, and you're not going to add any value to the meeting or say anything. At the end of it, it's dead time. So no need for you to be there. And also challenge the people that are sending you the meetings. Hey, there's no agenda. Does this need to be 30 minutes rather than an hour, 30 minutes rather than an hour? Am I the best person to attend? Have I got the right level of knowledge, or could somebody else do it? Would they be better? So I would recommend everybody does that.
I see that all the time, the time, because people generally start their calendars with their meetings and then try and fit their life around that. Whereas, you're saying put the holidays in first, then you should schedule your project stuff. And then if the meetings are needed, they need to fit in. But they let other people run their diaries, don't they?
Generally speaking, there's 2 types of meetings. There's the schedule meetings, which you believe you need to manage the team and meet your objectives, which help, so you've got one-to-ones with the team, you might have reporting or cadence calls, you might have strategy calls, whatever they are. And then you've got the random ones that drop in on a regular basis. And it's the random ones that you have less control over that you really need to think long and hard about. So, it's, at the beginning of every year, I flush my calendar out completely and start from scratch and go, right, well, what's changed? What am I going to change? Do I need to do things at different times? Am I managing teams in different time zones? So I need to adjust that and so on and so forth. So it's literally, I call it calendar cleansing. I
like it. I love that term. Yeah, I've written that down. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Plan your week. So for me, this actually starts on a Friday. This is the last thing I do every single Friday. So between 4:30, 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock every single Friday. By the way, I try not to work beyond 5:30, 6 o'clock any Friday, because to me, that's my weekend. It's my time. And I've had a tough week. And the first thing I want to do is I want to go out with the family. I want to go have some dinner. I want to go for a walk. I just want to decompress. But the last thing I do to help me segue into that decompression phase is I sit down and I look at my inbox and I say, right, are there any really burning fires in here that I've not addressed? And, is there any sort of final things, notes I just need to shoot out to say, sorry, I've not done this. I'll get to it on Monday. Or, I just want to give you a quick update so people know that it's getting your attention. It gives them the confidence that it's getting the attention, even though it's not been delivered. So, and what can wait until next week? And and then the other thing is look at your calendar for the following week and just do the diary cleansing exercise. Okay, so I know on Monday I've got free space here, and I've got an important customer meeting here. I've got time to travel. And the other thing is make sure you leave enough space in your calendar, block out time to think, strategize, and catch up on actions from meetings. People who have, and I see it every day, and I work with people who have back-to-back calls all day long, and they think they're famous for having back-to-back calls, but they end up working till 10 o'clock at night because they can't catch up on themselves.
And I know they think that AI is fine now because it's going to write all the notes, and it definitely does help, but it's not a replacement for that cognitive stuff that you do, which is thinking about the meeting or thinking about the actions. So I'm a fan of AI note taking, but for the right reasons, rather than, I can have my meetings back to back now. I don't need any extra time to think about it after the meeting because Zoom has captured it or whatever.
AI is fantastic, Dee. I'll be honest with you, and it's saving us all time in various different ways, whether it's, it helped me write a legal letter that I didn't need to involve legal in. They spent 5 minutes checking it, but essentially I'd done the work, AI did it for me. It saved me 2 hours of time probably, and then it takes notes from meetings, but I don't know about you, but I take the notes, but I generally have to go back through them and just sanitize them a little bit. They're not, and also you have to have time to be able to do something with the notes. It's all very well saying AI has generated them, but if there's actions in there and you're in back-to-back meetings, you just end up with the same thing. You end up with lots of AI generated notes, but no time to execute on them.
Yeah, and if you don't, sometimes note taking is the process of thinking, what am I going to do with that, and thinking about the actions. So if you just let AI take the notes and you haven't done the thinking behind what does that mean, when do I need to schedule that in, you're going to think you're ahead of the game and you're not going to be. So you've got to use it alongside your current strategy, haven't you?
You've got to think about AI as a person that you're working with, a colleague, an assistant, and you work with them, not rely on them. So, and it will get better as the technology develops, of course. But I still like that sort of personal writing things down a little bit myself because it helps me think. So the other thing, setting expectations. So expectation setting is key to any routine. Informing your manager there's certain days of the week that you've got flexibility. There are others where you need a little bit of flexibility because I've got to drop my children off and I'm not going to be actually online until X, or I don't mind working late a little later this night, but I could really do with finishing at like 4 o'clock. Or I'm definitely going to take an hour gap every lunchtime. By the way, I've done that for as long as I can remember. I'm not saying I don't use the time sometimes, but I do block an hour out to go and sit away from my desk and have lunch every day. Because
I think that's pretty unusual. Fantastic, but unusual.
Yeah, one reason is I don't like spilling things on my desk and in my keyboard because it's a nightmare to clean. But also, you've got to just step away from work for a while. So set the expectation with your manager. Talk to them about your personal circumstances. Stakeholders, don't be frightened of just saying, no, I'm not able to do that, unfortunately. People aren't going to fire you for it. They'll just find another time. Or delegate it. This might be a bit controversial, and I hope my boss doesn't listen to this, but I do have power naps. If I'll block time out in my diary, and that typically looks like at least 2 hours every day, which might sound like a long time, but 2 hours isn't a long time when you've got to build a PowerPoint deck to put a business case across to a set of senior leaders, or you need to look at some reporting around for financial purposes, or you're planning for next year. 2 hours is not a long time. But sometimes I find myself, rarely, of course, where I think, I've got 30 minutes to kill, and I'm looking at my calendar, my inbox. And I don't move from my desk. I just have a chair that reclines a little bit, and I literally just shut my eyes for 20 minutes.
I think there's probably quite a lot of science behind that, actually, that is meant to be very good for creativity. So
it helps me, and as long as you don't get into a deep sleep and forget about
don't wake up till the next day.
Yeah. You don't get your cognitive side of it stays switched on. So 20 minutes is enough, 15, 20 minutes, and it's discipline. You can do it. But when you wake up, you will find, I'm pretty much guaranteed most people will find that they're more energized and they're more alert. So I do that regularly. We've talked about taking vacation, but let's just add a bit more spice to that, because, appoint a deputy or coverage. A lot of people don't do it. In fact, most people don't do it. They just put an out of office on. And I see a lot of people's out of offices saying, if anything urgent comes up, call this number. Well, then... And the thing is, Dee, once you start taking calls and answering emails, that becomes the de facto standard. You'll respond and go, and they'll say, oh, they're online. and then they'll tell somebody else that you're online, or they'll add somebody else into the email thread. And before you know it, you're bouncing emails and you're meant to be on holiday, lying on a beach, sipping a cocktail, whatever you're doing, hiking up a mountain. So Deppy team cover, no emails. I have a rule, this is a leadership thing, but I started this probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Before I go on holiday, the first thing I do is tell everybody I'm going on holiday.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise. They're not just going to get out of office. I tell all the people I'm working with, hey, I'm going to go on holiday. And by the way, while I'm away, don't contact me. Here's my backup. Secondly, I say to my team, because I don't want to come back to 1,000 emails. So I say to my team, and we used to run it as a little competition. So I made it fun. I used to say, right, I want you to open a Word document or an email, blank template, and when you're going through your work week and you think, this is something I need to talk to Andy about, or I need his cadence on, or his counsel, or what have you, I need his support, write it down. Don't send it to me, just write it down. And then when I come back, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a 30-minute to an hour meeting with each of you, and we'll go through the list. Opposed to me reading, trying to filter out all of the crap and read 1,000 emails to figure out,
which are out of date anyway now.
Totally out of date. And then we run a competition. So the competition is I do an email count when I get back, and there's a little prize for the person that sent me the most emails that shouldn't have.
I like that.
So we used to do that on a team call, and honestly, it works brilliantly. You'd be surprised. You can remove the amount of email that you receive during a holiday by 50, 60, 70% sometimes.
Everyone likes competition. I like that idea.
Yeah, it helps, that transition back into work. It's so much easier because you've got less to look at, and you're talking to people opposed to reading emails. The other thing I do is I always add an extra day to my out of office. So I might come back to work on the Monday, but I add an out of office day so that people think I'm not arriving back till the Tuesday. And the reason for that, it's a clear day. So I've got a whole day to have my calls, to catch up. There will be a few emails from others that have come in, and just to get myself grounded and organised.
That's great. I learned that the hard way. Yeah, because you come back and if you go straight back into the day job, you don't get a chance to ever catch up with yourself. So that's definitely a good one. Yeah.
Last couple, email routine we talked about. I learned this from an executive coach, actually, somebody else who I know and he's very open about it. He puts it on his mail signature. I will only answer emails between 8 and 10 in the morning and between 5 and 6 in the evening. The rest of the time I'm with clients, I'm in meetings, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And so he set that expectation. Now, a derivative of that is what we talked about with the routine side of things, and that's just have certain times of the day where you carve out time, no meetings, where you could just go to your email and you just keep on top of it. And I even today, Dee, I still today try and end every day being able to see the bottom of my inbox. So file, get rid, answer, and my inbox to a certain extent also forms my to-do list. It's an audit trail, but every day, file the stuff that you don't need, send the emails that you feel as though you've got time to send that are easy to fix, leave the ones in there that need a little bit more thought or they're triggered to do something later in the week. Make sure you can see the bottom of your inbox every day.
And you told me, I don't know if you still do this, that you had a folder for your CCs. So that
that's the next thing on my list. So, and again, this is something I was getting overwhelmed with email, and a lot of it was just garbage. My old boss, 2 bosses back, used to send emails, which I still today hate, where they'd send one email to 10 people, and then within the email they'd say, Andy, you need to do this, John, you need to do this, Sarah, you need to do this. And that sits in your inbox, but it's very difficult to manage like that. And sometimes you'd be on CC. So what I did, I was very open about it. Wherever I was on CC, I automated the emails dropping into a separate folder. And I used to put a note on my mail signature that said anything that I'm on CC, any mail that I'm sent where I'm on CC will only get read when I've got downtime or when I'm traveling, because I'm going to assume it's not important.
Mm-hmm.
If it's important, they send it to you.
Yeah.
Or needed action. And that was very, very helpful too.
Brilliant. Wow, we've got loads to work with there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look down a few other things, but look, there's flexible working, talk to your manager. There's always, everyone works flexibly today. We've talked about the Friday inbox review, but one thing I would implore everybody to do more of is when somebody asks you to do something without a reason, ask them why.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them why. We don't do it enough. Quite often they won't know because somebody will have asked them to do it.
Yeah.
And just say, look, I'm happy to help, but I'm very busy. I'm very, very busy. So if I need to do this, something that is another priority that I have isn't going to get done. So before I say yes to this, I could really do some justification. Why do you need it? And what value is it going to drive? What's it going to achieve?
Yeah. And I think that helps. I mean, that's really good rule anyway, because it helps you to understand, even if you are doing it, why you're doing it, and then you're more likely to do it correctly anyway, even if you have to do the task. So there'll be no rework. Correct. And or it may take it away. I think that does definitely come with a health warning, which is you need to be calm about asking why, right? So it's not defensive monkeys. Why are you giving this to me? It's curiosity. Oh, okay. So why? Isn't
That's
that
right.
You're calm. Yeah. You're not challenging. You're just curious.
You might not choose to use the word why. You might say, oh, can you help me understand a little bit about, what's the reason for this? Who's asked for it? Only because you might say, well, actually, I think I can give you something that a little bit more that might help you even more than you think So it's about sort of leading that conversation and trying to get some clarity. It's the same thing with meetings. Where's the agenda? Yeah. If there's no agenda, then what's the purpose of having a meeting?
Yeah, don't get me started on that, Andy. You know how I feel about
maybe that's another podcast.
I think so. Meeting ways of working. Brilliant. Okay, so let's say I'm a really stressed leader. I've got loads of things to do, and now you've just given me loads of other things that I want to try, and they all sound brilliant. I'm going to implement all of them tomorrow. Probably isn't the best way to go. Have you got one that you'd say, look, just start with this, just begin here? We might not do it, but any advice that you think would be a great starting point?
The simple answer to that is take a step back and think about your role and your goals and objectives. What are they? Because that's what you're getting paid for. That's what you have. That you have a team to help you deliver, or you're an individual contributor and you've been given a set of objectives. What are they? Then start utilizing some of the other tools we've talked about. Go and have a look at what you're actually doing, the meetings you're having, and work out whether they're actually helping you deliver against your goals and objectives. And if they're not, then make some changes.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, all the other things we've talked about today, underpin that one thing, because you can then get into cleansing your diary. You can start to build a better routine. You might need to talk to some different stakeholders but not as many of them. And the whole thing will it will take shape, and do it regularly.
Yeah, fantastic tip. Thank you. So we're going to wrap up now, and I want to finish by really just understanding the positive impact that doing all this has had on you. I think just to talk to people about the mindset change that is needed first, and then I'm going to ask the impact on you, is just to really clarify that attitude has to come from you to begin with, of I am worthwhile, I am valuable, I do bring something to the business, to the organization, and I am worth taking a break or a lunch break or a nap or whatever it is. That is the first piece, really. So if you feel you struggle with implementing some of these habits, habits aren't easy to establish anyway, but if you really have objection to these and you're thinking there's no way I can do anything of the sort because my challenge back would be, well, that's probably one of those mind monkeys that I talk about, and you need to sort out your mind monkeys. But assuming that they've sorted out their mind monkeys and now they can implement these lovely habits, or just some of them, if you don't mind, just talk to the listener about the impact it's had on you. How has your world changed since you've implemented these new things?
It's been cathartic. I'm quite proud actually of the way I've been able to create balance, and it's been hard work. So back in the day I was working 65 hours a week, at the moment, I would say on average, I'm active for 45 hours a week. If you exclude travel, I do travel, right? So, but just generally speaking, 45 hours a week. Am I less productive and less efficient? Absolutely not. In fact, I would say I'm more productive. Why? Because I've learned how to prioritize. And because I'm not as tired, because I'm doing those extra hours and working into the evening, I have more energy, I'm more focused, and I've got more clarity of mind. But it's not easy, Dee. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute this is easy. Sometimes, people struggle to communicate with their manager. Sometimes managers struggle to communicate with other leaders, or they feel as though they can't. But I would say if you don't try, you won't know.
Yeah.
And if you don't tell them, they won't know either. So they can't help you. Yeah. And always remember that your manager is there as a support mechanism. They're not there to tell you off. So if they don't know you've got a problem with workload and balance, or you've got a personal issue that you need to accommodate, how on earth are they ever going to be able to flex and help you? So for me, it was, and also health-wise, I was quite sedentary for a number of years, sat at a desk for 15, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day. And what did I do about it? I went and got a dog. I started to implement some of these to force me to go out and walk. I started to, use some of these tools that we've talked about today and implement sort of a best practice for myself. And as a result, my stress levels came down. And I actually think I'm a much better person for it. And, just to put this into perspective, there are some weeks where I might do less than 40 hours, but I might deliver significant things. Nobody's ever complaining to me to say I'm not working hard enough.
And you show up for your teams. I've experienced you answer email when I ask you a question. You answer my emails. I've seen you with your teams. You're very present as well. I think this allowing space in your diary, it's almost like slowing down, allows you to be more present rather than rushing. So when they get your time, I imagine it's really rich and valuable rather than, here's 5 minutes here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, responsiveness. We live in a world where you order something online and you want it today. I mean, it's real-time delivery. It's the same at work. You've got Teams, Zoom, Skype, whatever it is, email. People email you and they expect a response straight away. I'm not saying I do that for every email, but generally speaking, if somebody emails me and is asking for help or requires me to do something, I go back and evaluate my priorities. And I very quickly go, well, I've got 10 things that I can manage. So if this is more important than the 10 things, I'm going to put it in the list, but the thing at the bottom is going to drop off and it's going to wait. But I'm going to have to go and negotiate and tell somebody that. Or it's not more important. So I'll write back to them and I'll say, look, I just acknowledge the email. Why is that important? Because then they know that you've got it. But if you just don't answer, then they'll keep emailing you.
Yes, adding to your workload to answer the emails.
You'll buy yourself time. Hey, hi, I've got your email. I'm rammed at the moment. I'm really busy, but I'll take another look at it on Monday. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Generally, people say, thanks very much. That's fine. They know you've got it. You've caught the ball. You're going to do something with it, and hopefully they won't need to chase you. So,
brilliant.
I don't really know what more to say on that. It's just human nature. It's politeness.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but some people choose avoidance instead. So you're talking about being authentic, honest, open with people, and really having that trust in your relationship that you can have that conversation with your teams, with your customers, even with your manager, whoever. And you're a great example of that. And I'm so pleased that you came on to share your wisdom. We're not saying everyone's got to do it like you. We're just saying, look, here's a real person that I've seen in a really, really high pressured, fast-moving environment. Things change on a daily basis. You've got big teams, you work internationally, and you are walking the talk, as they say. So I'm really pleased that you came on and created time to spend. I know you love coaching other people, so this can be a resource that you can share with some of the people that you're coaching, and I'll share it with our audience, and you'll help more and more people to get more control over their time and their priorities. So really appreciate your time. Thank you, Andy, so much.
Thank you, Dee. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Andy, for sharing your tips and techniques with us. We can use any of those things ourselves and start testing them out right this week to see if they work for us, and if not, how we can make them work for us. So let's get in control of our workload. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do share it with someone else who might benefit from tips and techniques from Andy too. If you want to look at other episodes, we are on podcasts, Apple and Spotify, and you can also find us on YouTube by searching The Debrief Show, and that's with Dee Clayton. So until next time, continue to bring out the best in yourself and your teams and your communications.